Ready.
Welcome to this presentation about Kempston Academy. It's fantastic that you've taken the opportunity to listen to this presentation about Kempston Academy and also our SEND provision. I'm just going to do a quick introduction and then I'm going to pass you over to Mr. Ragg, a member of our fantastic senior leadership team, who's going to talk to you in more detail about the provision we have in place and how things work here at Kempston Academy. I suppose I should start by saying I took up this role at the start of this term, so I've only been in post for 2 weeks now. And I have to say, it's been fantastic. The students and staff at the school are overwhelmingly positive, really value each other and look after each other and are extremely loyal to the school. So you're joining a fantastic school community. It's also a school that has undergone a huge amount of change and transition in the last year, all for the positives, with a huge focus on the conduct of our students in the classroom so that we provide a safe learning space for every student to be successful and excel in their subjects, so that when they leave us at the end of year 11, they go on to be as successful as possible in whichever step they or future career they choose to follow. In terms of the information that Mr. Ragg is going to share with you, there will be some tweaks. So some of the information you get shared with you now may change in advance of September, just as we start to tighten our processes and make sure that the offer we have in place is as successful as possible for the students. I really am excited to meet you all in person. We've got a number of transition days coming up at the end of the year, towards the start of July, with an evening event as well. And I have to say, this year group will be particularly important for me because it will be my first year 7 group as head teacher of Kempston Academy. So I will really look to them to instill our values and our vision and be extremely successful when they leave at the end of year 11. So I'm going to hand over to Mr. Ragg now. I look forward to meeting you in person. And of course, we are available if you have any questions at any point.
Thank you, Mr. House. Hello, everybody. As House said, my name is Mr. Ragg. I'm one of the assistant head teachers here at Kempston Academy. My main area of responsibility is the Aspen Centre, but I'll come on and discuss that in more detail in a moment. So, as Mr. House has said, I'm going to be looking at the transition support with students with SEN coming to Kempston Academy, joining us in September. Now, the first thing to look at is the school day at Kempston Academy. As Mr. House alluded to at the start, this is one thing that may potentially change before you join us in September. At the moment, we have a split lunch where Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, so years 7 to 9 and years 10 and 11, have lunch at separate times of the school day at the moment. But conversations are happening at the moment as to whether that will continue or whether we will go back to everybody just having lunch at the same time. One of the real positives around if we do have lunch at the same time is then it will mean that more of our facilities are available at lunchtime, such as the sports hall being available so that students can go down and join in lunchtime sports clubs. We have a large playground where there are a number of games, basketball and things like that on there. We have some brand new large covered areas, seated covered areas that are new to us this year, which are fantastic at break and lunch times. If students just want to sit down on the benches and socialise and have a bit of quiet time, they can go and use those areas. Or we have the library, which at break and lunchtime we call our sanctuary area, where students with SEN can go into a calm, quiet environment. There will be TAs timetables to be in the library during these lunch times, and they can support in catching up with any work, any homework, or if people would like to take part in some small group games, they will also be available. In terms of the school day, lessons are 1 hour long. We currently do our PSHE during our form time and registration. So when you come into school, you come in through the main school gates. You will then line up on the playground in your form groups at 8:20. A member of the SLT will then speak with you. Heads of year will be there. And once you're lined up in alphabetical order, you'll then be escorted to your form lesson by your form tutor. You will then be in registration for 30 minutes. And then following that, the school day starts. So lesson 1 being at 9:05. And as I say, each of your lessons are 1 hour long. And there are five lessons in the school day. Key contacts within the school. Obviously, you've just met Mr. House, our new head teacher. Mrs. Davina Lodge is our Senko. Unfortunately, she's off at the moment. but we've got an assistant Senko who's Miss Rhiannon Presland, who's also our head of media studies. Myself, I'm a qualified Senko, and as I say, I oversee the Aspen provision. And the head of year is one of those changes at the moment that Mr. House is looking at, and it's yet to be decided who the head of year is. However, this will be sorted out before the transition days, so that when parents have the opportunity to come in for the open evening, they will meet the head of year and all students will know who the head of year will be for September. In terms of communication, the main areas we use are Edulink, Parent Mail, and Google Classroom. So for those that haven't seen it before, Edulink is an app-based system that enables the school to communicate directly with parents and carers. We record all of our behaviour on there, timetables are on there, achievement points are on there. So once you're at the school, parents, carers can sign up onto the app, and then they will be able to see how students are progressing. All of the termly reports in terms of progress are also put onto Edulink. So parents and carers can access it, and students can see as well what their timetable is and where they are in terms of their achievement points or any behaviour points that they've accumulated. We also use Parent Mail, which is a school communication software. Again, that mainly used for letters as opposed to sending them in the post. Any communication for letters are sent directly via Parent Mail. And then Google Classroom. So we're a part of the Chiltern Learning Trust, which is a Google trust. So we are a Google school. So we use Google Classroom to put all of our work onto. So on there, we share assignments and any announcements with students and parents for both homework and classwork. In terms of the context of students with SEN at Kempston Academy, currently we have 811 students on roll. 89 of those students are K-coded, so they receive SEN support in school, with an additional 19 students who have educational healthcare plans. And then we have an additional 17 students in Aspen who have also got educational healthcare plans with the primary need of SEMH, social, emotional, mental health. And in September, with the current cohorts that we'll be getting in September, we are due to have 11 students starting with educational healthcare plans. In terms of SEN support at Kempston Academy, our approach to teaching students with SEN is that we believe in participation and success for all. All students with a SEN need have a curriculum support profile, so a one-page profile which details individual needs, strategies to be used within the classroom, and additional support and intervention that that student is receiving both in the classroom, but then we have some of our interventions which run during tutor time between 8:30 and 9 o'clock. Every teacher is required to make reasonable adjustments to the curriculum to ensure access to learning for all children within their class. We believe highly in quality first teaching, and therefore teachers use various strategies to adapt access to the curriculum. Some of the strategies that we might use are visual timetables, writing frames, use of tablets or laptops or other alternative recording devices, use of a scribe, a peer buddy system, picture dictionary, use of specialist equipment such as writing slopes, covered overlays, or specialist writing equipment, and also support in lessons. So then at Kempston Academy, we're committed to working together with all members of our school community, working through the quality first teaching and using the graduated response in response to SEN needs. We want all adults and children to participate in learning, and we believe all members of our community. We celebrate all members of our community. We want to create an inclusive culture in our school, and we aim to be responsive to the diversity of children's backgrounds, interests, experience, knowledge, and skills. We value high quality teaching for all learners and actively monitor teaching and learning in the school. The staff at Kempston Academy have a wide range of experience and expertise. Many staff have received specific training in programs and interventions, including trauma training. We've got a couple of members of staff who are ELSA trained, so emotional literacy support. We have Lego therapy, zones of regulations, and also switch on reading training. All staff have experience and expertise in training in other areas such as ASC, ADHD, emotional well-being, speech and language difficulties, and also dyslexia. So we have a number of TAs within the school. We're recruiting more ready for September. All TAs have a timetable, but when the TAs are in lesson, they're not Velcro TAs, so they're not sat just working with one young person. We use a helicopter approach, so they are there to support all students in the classroom who have got SEN needs or are on the SEN register. We will use a consistent staff member for interventions. So if it's a targeted intervention for a set amount of weeks, it will always be with the same teaching assistant. We ensure that if a child has an EHCP, the hours named within that are met and exceeded. And we do this through support in lessons, but also paired and small group work where suitable. We have support in place and in anticipation of any ECNAFs preparation. So we have experience of a number of our students who have been through the ECNAF process, and making sure that that support is in place from them from the onset. Broad range of experience within the TA team. Some have been here for a very long time and some are fairly new to the team. So it's a nice combination of expertise and fresh new people on the team. And the TA deployment is constantly reviewed. So I'm responsible for looking at the TA timetable and ensuring that support is in the correct lessons where it is identified and where it is needed. We have a long list of interventions. I won't read through everything that's on the screen, but you can see there the different interventions that we use for our maths, our English, social skills, speech and language, fine gross motor skills, and also SEMH needs. We're looking for September of purchasing a new software called IDL, which will further support literacy, numeracy, and well-being. And it has initial screeners built into the intervention to ensure that interventions are tailored specifically to the needs of the learners. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be having interventions running during our morning tutorials. So there'll be opportunities for students to have an intervention for that first 30 minutes of the day before going into their first lesson. And there will be interventions running throughout the day, but where possible, we will avoid these being in the core subjects of maths, English or science. As of this year, we've also started running some ASDAN programs, which have been really successful. So we've got a number of our students and young people who are accessing the short courses. So the short courses ASDAN offer range from English, football studies, and even down to activities and peer tutoring. As I mentioned earlier, we have the Aspen Centre on site. So the Aspen Centre is a 20-place provision for students with educational healthcare plans with social and mental health as a primary need. Students within the Aspen Centre are Kempston Academy students. We wear the exact same uniform, and we integrate students into the main school as much as we possibly can. The only difference is students that are placed within the Aspen Centre are placed through the local authority. So there would be a consultation that comes into myself, and then in agreement with the local authority, students are placed within Aspen. We mirror the main school curriculum as much as we possibly can. It's just we have some higher staff ratio, smaller group working, and increased support and intervention. As I say, we try and get students across into main school as much as we can so that they're really accessing a broad and balanced curriculum and getting that full diet of curriculum available to them. We have a core group of staff who work within the Aspen Centre, but then teachers, subject-specific teachers come in and deliver the lessons to ensure the best possible curriculum for our learners. We have 10 so far, Year 7s, that will be joining us in September. So we look forward to welcoming them. In terms of assessment and identification of SEND, there's a lot of work that goes in at the point of transition of gaining information from feeder schools, so the primary schools that you're currently in, gaining information from parents, completing baseline assessments on arrival, such as doing the GL assessments or looking at specific assessments. The last screener looking at dyslexia, dyscalculia, etc. We also partner with Magic Words, who come and do speech and language intervention with us on a Monday. We work with the local authority in terms of if we need to apply for EP reports to be completed. And as well, in terms of the submission of ECNAFs as required after completing the assess plan do review. The Code of Practice defines SEND as a child or young person has SEND if they have a learning difficulty or disability which calls for special educational provision to be made for them. A child of compulsory school age or a young person has a learning difficulty or disability if they have a significantly greater difficulty in learning than the majority of others, or have a disability which prevents or hinders them from making use of educational facilities of a kind general provided for others of the same age in mainstream schools. So students' needs are typically identified into 4 areas of speech and language, cognition and learning, social and emotional and mental health, and physical and sensory. In most cases, a primary area of need is identified. However, there are occasions where more than one area can be recognised. At Kempston Academy, we are committed to ensuring that all learners have access to learning opportunities, and for those who are at risk at not learning, we will intervene. This does not mean that all vulnerable learners have SEND. Only those with a learning difficulty that requires special educational provision will be identified as having SEND. Class teachers, support staff, parents, carers, and the learner themselves will be the first to notice a difficulty with learning. And at Kempston Academy, we ensure that assessment of educational needs directly involves the learner, the parents, carers, and the teachers. So it's the child-centred approach. The SENCO will support in the identification of barriers to learning. As I mentioned earlier, the assessment tools that we have. These assessments are used to identify specific needs and adapt programs or implement interventions as appropriate for young people. All stages of the assessments and students' opinions are considered too. For some learners, we may want to seek advice from outside specialists, which we have, as I mentioned earlier, through working with the local authority, Bedford Borough, in terms of looking for support with educational psychology, from the educational psychologists, from the autism specialist advisory team, the NHF speech and language therapy, CAMS, CHUMS. We also have a school counsellor on site who we can refer to young people to for additional supports. And then finally, the transition process at Kempston Academy. So the transition process is already in progress. I've got a meeting tomorrow to finalise exactly what the transition is going to look like for our young people with SEND, and I will share that as soon as possible with everybody. But as a part of this, meetings have already been arranged with primary SENCOs to share any knowledge of prior needs and support, what's worked well at primary school, so that we can continue to use that within secondary. Transition passports to be completed by parents and carers. There will be further one-to-one visits and tours offered on an individual basis to come in and view the school. And we're going to be having additional transition sessions for small groups of vulnerable students. This is what we're finalising tomorrow in terms of there being those extra sessions for our young people with SEND so that they feel ready for that transition for September. And they will also be included in the whole year transition days, which are planned for the 2nd and 3rd of July, with then the parent evening on the 3rd of July, where we really look forward to welcoming you all and meeting and answering any questions that you have then. Thank you very much. That's the end of our presentation.